snowy day in Toronto. I don't know how I personally feel about it, but regardless, you are watching Raptors today. I'm Savanna Hamilton alongside Paul Jones and Sherman Hamilton. We're going to break down the Boston Celtics game of what happened. You know, the Raptors lost 97 to 109. But first things first, there's some big news that broke out, of course. Goran Dragic left the team for personal issues, and, you know, Masai and Bobby Webster, they gave him their blessing and talked, you know, said some kind words about just how much of a leader he's been to the young guys this season.
Well, listen, people sometimes forget, as much as we talk about these athletes and what they can and can't do on the court or on the field or on the pitch, they're still human beings. They have lives, they have families, they have the same issues that we have in life. And if Goran has a personal issue, has to deal with some personal business, then he needs time away from the team. They always say on an airplane, make sure you look after yourself, secure your oxygen mask before you help somebody else. So Goran needs to help himself and his family before he can be right for the team. And that being said, Bobby and Masai, Bobby's talked about it. I know in training camp, I talked to many of the coaches. He's been terrific with the young guys. There were drills at times where they said, no, the vets can sit out. He would jump right up and say, no, I'm in there talking to the young guys. So that part of him will be missed, but he's got to get his house in order, do things that are good, get things good with him first before he comes back to the team.
Absolutely. You know, human being first, family first, athlete second or third, wherever you want to put the athlete stuff in there as well. But let's get to the on-court performance, because the Raptors were missing more than just Goran, of course. They were missing a lot of names there, but one significant offensive name was Gary Trent Jr. He wasn't present, and I think the Raptors definitely felt that.
Yeah, absolutely. When you shoot under 40% and a guy like Gary Trent Jr., who can score the basketball and just get offense on his own, you definitely miss him. And, you know, you're talking about also with Gary Trent Jr., because he attracts so much attention, it opens the floor for other players. So this is not just a him scoring thing, it's how he impacts offense overall. And, you know, we can't forget the OG's still not in the lineup, and he's another guy who can put points on the board on his own. So you're struggling to figure out ways to score, and it showed. You know, Fred did what he could do, you know, Pascal did what he could do, but they're trying to find that third and fourth scorer, and right now it's difficult to do that. And, you know, a side note, even a Khem Birch, this is a guy who's a reliable 8, 10, 12 points a game guy, because he understands how to play in that short roll, has that little push shot. So that's a confident, consistent offensive guy in his role. So they're missing a lot of offensive firepower, and it's difficult to figure that out on the fly with so many good pieces off the floor.
Absolutely, and then you're giving other guys opportunities, but, you know, you did mention those three names being, you know, GTJ, Khem Birch, and OG Anunoby, but defensively, they also make an impact.
You know, it's funny, Savannah, when a guy's out of the lineup, people talk about where's the scoring going to come from, who gets those shots, and there tends to be a lot of focus on the offense, but you have to look at your defensive chemistry and your defensive composition as well. OG Anunoby, one of your better perimeter defenders. He can guard multiple positions, no problem when they're switching. Gary Trent Jr., he's up there in terms of steals, deflections, things that help your defense. And then Sherm talked about the reliability of Khem Birch on offense. He's the same way on defense. He gets many of those rebounds at close possessions. He's boxing a bigger guy out to allow somebody else to jump in and get the rebound. So, you know, there's two sides to the ball, and I think missing those guys, now you're putting other guys in there. You have unfamiliar lineups, not only playing on the offensive end, but playing on the defensive end, and maybe not being able to communicate with the regularity or the consistency as you do when those other guys are in the lineup.
I think something that was a little surprising was the fact that Chris Boucher, you know, as far as we know, there was no injury report as to why he didn't play, but with Delano too, he saw limited minutes. I believe he only got 3 minutes that game. So, you know, like, just, you know, why do you think that was, Sherm?
I think for Nick Nurse, he's searching. He's trying to find some different players, different combinations, guys who can help out in the moment. And sometimes, you know, coaches see something they like, they roll with it, and they feel like something's going to evolve out of those rotations. You know, we saw Malachi Flynn on the floor for quite a bit. You know, Isaac Bonga was on the floor. He had some minutes. So it's interesting. But, you know, a guy like Chris Boucher who can make three-point shots, we know that. A guy who can defend the rim by blocking shots. Nick Nurse goes in another direction. And, you know, the coach has the pulse of the team. The coach knows what's happening in the locker room and practices. he's got an idea of where his players are. So it's hard to question why he didn't play a guy. You just know that he's searching. He's trying to find different things, different ways to put offense on the floor and not compromise the defense, and without key guys in the lineup. And it sounds like a broken record or like we're making an excuse, but when you don't have those key guys in the lineup, it's difficult to fill those voids. And Nick Nurse is trying his best to search out ways to try and make it work without those guys.
Absolutely, and a few ways he was looking towards was Isaac Bonga as well as Justin Champagnie. Now, you know, they didn't get enough minutes for me to really make a solid assessment, but what did you think of their play so far, at least?
Well, you know, to Sherm's point about Nick Nurse and kind of searching, reaching, trying to get different combinations together, and I'll go back to what I talked about earlier. When you do that, and there's unfamiliarity, when you implement new things, things get better before they get worse. So personally, I thought Bonga and Champagnie did a good job. They had limited minutes. I wouldn't say they were spectacular and they gave the team a good lift, but they did a good enough job to not hurt the team, and they tried to stay within their roles. Bonga was active at both ends of the floor. Champagnie was, you know, does what he does. He's a guy who's aggressive and always around the ball. It rewarded him with a couple of free throws. He was part of some steals and some deflections at the other end. So I don't think they were spectacular, but I don't think they hurt the team. And it wouldn't surprise me to see Nick Nurse stay in that direction with them. Let's let him get familiar. Let's give him a little bit more time and see if it works out. But that being said, Nick coaches by feel, and if he feels that something else might work, you know he's going to go to it.
Absolutely. I love your point with that. Like, you know, it's just about getting reps, on-court familiarity, and sometimes it's a win if you just stay within your role and contribute where you can. We're now going to hear from head coach Nick Nurse, Scotty Barnes, and Fred VanVleet for their thoughts after the game.
If I'm open and I got good looks, why not shoot the ball? So it's not really something that's so big. It's just, if I'm open, just shoot the ball. Everybody just been encouraging. We all believe in each other, that we all can shoot. So, like I said, if I open looks, just shoot the ball. They believe in me. Coaches, staff, players, they believe in me. They just keep encouraging me to just be confident out there on the floor. Being able to shoot the ball when I got the open shots. And of course, it's a lot of hard work that's put into it, so not be afraid to.
Just working. I mean, probably felt how it looked at times, but I thought, you know, for the most part, guys played hard. The intensity was there for the most part, but just not enough to get the win. I don't really think it matters, to be honest with you. It's just hard to get a hold of it if it's going to be changing. I think this is the way it'll go for the rest of the year. Like we thought, you know, they usually go overboard, and then it goes back. So I would expect to see more of this, you know, going forward. But you just got to be able to adapt and adjust, and consistency is the thing that we all strive for. And I know that those refs are trying their best, and we're trying our best, and nobody wants to make mistakes. So as players, we always ask for consistency, and the refs are trying, but, you know, it's a tough job for all of the above. The only thing I will say is that I can't believe there was no, like, communication. You know, a few years we've had dialogue before the season and training camp and stuff like that. I just thought that would help. You know, the refs are out there with us. They're a part of the game. It shouldn't be like the evil eye, you know what I mean? We shouldn't feel like they're our enemy. They're a part of the game as well, and the more communication, the better we can know what to expect.
Yeah, I mean, I thought, Doug, I thought the guys played really hard. I think some of the guys that we haven't seen that much of, Yuta, Isaac, obviously, Justin, I thought they went in there and did a good job. And and we got, you know, some scoring from, you know, I thought Scotty gave us an offensive spark, you know, for sure. They tried pretty hard. There's just a couple things you can't overcome there. I mean, I thought it was a good effort. Just didn't quite bounce our way. Just kind of the game, really. I thought they made a bunch of huge, like, momentum buckets. Like even in the first half, when they don't seem like they're that important, but it seemed like every time we got on a little bit of a run, they answered with they had a couple threes, and then they had an and one, I think 3 times early in the game when it felt like, you know, we had a chance to, you know, to extend. They made a couple, and then they kind of continued to do that. I think even when we tied it right away, they went down and nailed another 3, and And then we had a couple of good consequences at the rim where we made them miss, and then they tapped a couple back in on us. So just I thought they made some plays, and we didn't quite make the defensive plays. But again, pretty proud of the effort by the fellas, to be honest with you.
Fred VanVleet's getting a lot of minutes.
Yes.
He's leading the league in minutes right now. But you know, he did say that that's not bothering him, that he's totally capable of that, and as well as he has like the most miles ran, I believe, as well. But you know, how important is it for a team that's this young to log in this amount of minutes to get those reps?
Well, first of all, Fred is running city miles. These aren't highway miles. He's in the city, stopping and going. So it's a difficult grind for Fred, but he's a fighter. He's mentally tough. He's a guy who's resilient. He understands what it takes to win, and he's willing to do whatever it takes to help his team win. The flip side of that is you have young players, and you want to try to develop these young players, and that's going to create some opportunities for them. It's going to take away some opportunities. But at the end of the day, when you have leadership like Fred who's saying, I'm out there and I'm willing to play all these minutes, there's no excuse for anybody else. You all are younger. You all just get into the league trying to figure things out. You're going to get opportunities to take advantage of. So the minutes that are there for these young guys have to be taken advantage of. And I don't want to hear a young guy talk about I'm playing too much or I'm tired. It doesn't fly. You got to go out there and play all the minutes you can and develop and help this team win, because at the end of the day, winning and development is hard to do.
Yep.
This franchise has been excellent at it over the last few years.
Absolutely. And Jones, you know, on that same note, we were talking off camera a bit about how it's a song and dance
Yes.
to develop,
Yes.
but then also win.
It's very hard to do, Savanna, and to Sherman's point, it's something that we have been talking about for years. Winning means that young guys don't play a lot. Developing means young guys play a lot, kind of get beat up a little bit and learn what to do and what not to do. And as we've talked about, Raptors have always been able to strike a nice balance. Right now, you're looking at something that the Raptors want to do both. They had a tough year last year. You come back to Toronto, you want to be in the mix, in the playoff mix. You want your young guys to play a little, to develop, but you want them to experience success and win. The ultimate would be to get into the playoffs so they experience what that is like, and it kind of catapults the developmental curve, and it helps your franchise move along. So it's a really, really delicate balance. And if you're the Toronto Raptors right now, you're trying to strike that balance. You really are. You're playing these young guys, but you have to play them responsibly, because if they play too much and develop too much and there's too much losing, now you get into bad habits, and those are really hard to break. They're kind of an unpainted canvas right now, and you got to map it out. You got some guys holding the brush like Fred and Pascal and OG that know where some of these brush strokes go. Got to put it all together.
Absolutely, and I wanted to kind of dive a little bit deeper with that with you on Sherman as well, because you know, wins and losses, they're valuable in learning and in growth of a team, of course, but and as you mentioned, sometimes development comes with a little bit more losses. How do you navigate that? How do you find the lesson within the losses without giving up too many wins or not learning enough from winning too?
It's a balance.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to win and learn at the same time, because winning feels better.
It was great.
Absolutely. But I think when you're talking about where you can gain more from, I think you can learn more about someone's character in losing situations, because that's easy to get exposed in a losing environment. Guys can go sideways. Guys can kind of turn on each other. When you're winning, it also shows character too. You know, are you the type of person that if you're not getting the minutes, are you supporting your teammates? Are you there? Are you working hard? Pushing people in front of you so they can play better to help the team. You still have a role. So I think there's lessons to be learned on both sides of it, but everybody wants to win and learn, because everybody wants to win, and that's the right way to do it. And again, this organization has been unbelievable in terms of being able to win while developing crucial pieces of talent to build for the future. So if they can consistently win while doing that, you might as well take that road. Forget the losing side.
Absolutely. I think, you know, it's funny, I was thinking about the last win that we had against the Memphis Grizzlies. I know we're going to preview them a little bit later in the show, but that win really stood out to me personally, because that was a team win that they collaborated together. I think that was a learning win.
Yeah.
So that's something that they could take away. But let's talk about the players that should be able to step up with this opportunity now, given that not only you have a chance to develop, but a chance to really create some impact on this team.
Well, a couple guys come to mind. You talk about the last win in Memphis, and we're going to talk about Memphis, but Svi Mykhailiuk and Malachi Flynn both did Malachi in particular did a really good job in that game. You look at the impact And both of these guys have learned, Malachi in a very short time period, probably as we talked about in an earlier show, because he's a 4-year player, at becoming very professional, staying ready, waiting for your opportunity. And this might be their opportunity now, both of them. Svi was in the starting lineup yesterday with Gary Trent's injury. He's very capable. He's got the ability to knock down shots. He works hard on defense. He can take the ball to the goal. He's a guy that I think can fit. And then Malachi Flynn backing up Fred. And we saw yesterday where Nick Nurse went Lowry Van Vliet. He actually had the two small guys on the floor at the same time, maybe searching for something, but, looking to get Malachi some minutes, maybe take the ball out of Fred's hands. So all of these things are opportunities for Svi and Malachi.
Absolutely, yeah, no, Malachi and Van Vliet together are awesome duo as well. It's interesting to see the small ball lineup with this team, but now it's time to talk about the next opponent on the schedule for the Toronto Raptors, the Memphis Grizzlies, who they saw not that long ago on the West Coast trip, of course. That was a good win, as I mentioned earlier in the show, but there's a difference with the Memphis Grizzlies in this regard. Ja Morant is out with a knee sprain, it appears to be. Best of wishes to him for a speedy recovery, of course. That's brutal. But how does that affect the Memphis offense, considering he's their guy? He's a point guard, and he's like the lead scorer.
Yeah, it really impacts the way that they're going to play the game now. Ja Morant is an explosive, dynamic basketball player. And when a guy handles the ball that much, other players feed off of that. They play off of him. They try to figure out spaces on the floor to either make themselves accessible to him or give him space to make his plays. And I think without him on the floor, sometimes that is the most difficult thing to game plan for an opposing coach. Because now all these other guys are getting all these opportunities, and you've scouted them based on what you know them to be. And now without Ja Morant, there's all these handling opportunities, shots are available, different play calls, and now you've got to really be on your toes in terms of what they might throw at you. So I expect the Raptors to have to really lock in and understand that Memphis with Steven Adams is still a team that can hurt you on the glass. You got to focus on that, but you also got to be prepared for Desmond Bane, for Kyle Anderson, for all these different guys to take more aggressive roles, and you're going to have to approach that differently. So without Ja, it almost becomes a bit of a crapshoot because there's a bit of a honeymoon there where the team just plays free basketball and they might jump on some teams.
Absolutely, and not to mention playing a team twice. I've said this before in the show. It's tough to win twice against a team, especially in the NBA. So we'll see what happens, of course. I think the Raptors do have it. I think I'm going to believe in them. But let's talk about the homecoming for Dylan Brooks, Canadian, on the Memphis Grizzlies. Does it make a difference when you're playing back on home soil?
Always does. He's a Mississauga kid. He played for Paul Melnick out at Father Henry Carr. And look, Dylan is a throwback. He's an old school kind of player in that his intensity is always turned up to high. And he also has the skill to go with it. He can make shots. He makes plays. He's aggressive defensively. So coming home will kind of raise that bar a little bit more. You know he's going to have people in the stands. You know he'll have support here. And it's the only time, as you said, that he comes in here all year. I mean, it's akin to when guys come home on the hockey side to play against the Toronto Maple Leafs, and they're from all other parts, and this is where it is for them. This is where it is. Canada has more NBA players than any other country in the world except for the U.S. These guys come home. They love to play in Toronto. I think you're going to see Dylan really gassed up. I think the Raptors are going to have to be well aware. You talk about Memphis. They did a good job in their last win coming back, as Sherm said, playing without Ja Morant. They smacked Sacramento.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you did mention Canada, and let's talk about the Canadian men's basketball. They're fighting right now to be in the 2023 FIBA World Cup. They just had a great win over the Bahamas.
Yeah, absolutely, and they're going to have to get another one in the next meeting against the Bahamas. Look, the bottom line is for this Canadian men's national team is they're at that sweet spot now. When there was this influx of NBA players, the expectations shot through the roof. They're in the NBA, they've got to be this great international team. Well, slow down. It takes time, it takes cohesion, it takes reps, and it takes understanding the international game. Well, now they have guys who are 5, 6, 7, 8-year veterans in the league that are leaders on the national team. They have some younger players, so now they have a better balance. So now it's just about the podium. It's about the gold medals. It's about the silvers. It's about being there when the dust settles. I think we're now in a sweet spot where The Canadian men's team has the international experience, has the NBA experience, has guys that are focal points on the NBA teams, and now it's about podium presence. And I think that's where we're at with the national team.
What I love seeing on the men's side is the fact that, now there's so many options. You're cutting good players off of this team, but that also means that, like, there's so many contributors. And you're right, like the international game, the NBA experience, it's all relevant.
It's coming together.
It is.
For sure.
It's coming together.
Yeah.
So is the women's side. They didn't have the best outing at Tokyo. It was not what they expected, of course. They are currently searching for a new head coach, but I did catch up with a few of the players, recently, and I asked them about what their team identity is, and they're like, we're still good. We're still strong. They actually had a players-only meeting between the team, and they really wanted to emphasize, because there's a lot of new players, new faces on the Canadian senior women's national team, one being Lamaya. She's a recent commit to Arizona, and there's just a number of youth just being embedded into this team. And of course, Kia Nurse and Shea Hawley, some of the veterans on this team, Natalie Achanwa, they're still holding it down. But, what do you think, when it comes to youth in terms of Canada, and just like overall, let's look at the broader photo here of just basketball presence in Canada, and having people like the Carter effect, like Carter, make a difference in this country.
You and Sherm both talked about the youth, and I'll go back, being of let's say a different vintage. The Carter effect was real. There was always basketball in Canada. It's just coming to the forefront now. There are things that are helping give it some notoriety and put the spotlight. The Raptors in the early 2000s, Vince Carter, don't be surprised now with the Raptors winning a recent championship just a few years ago, what that did. And you're seeing kids playing basketball. It's exploding. It's one of the most popular games in the world, one of the most popular games in Canada, and it's because there's an exposure, there's coaching, there's more and more kids wanting to get involved because they can see it. The Raptors, there's more games on TV. The college game is big. They can go to their local high school, their local university, and see games. So that part of it is great for Canada. And as we continue to widen the base at both the men's and women's level, that pyramid's going to get bigger and stronger, and I think Canada's in great stead for years to come.
I hope so. We'll see. Only time will tell.
Can't not be.
I like that. Okay, let's talk about where you can watch the game. You can watch it on Sportsnet at 7:30 on Tuesday. This is the Memphis Grizzlies that the Raptors will be taking on. Now, thank you again, guys, for watching another episode of Raptors Today. From Paul Jones, Savanna Hamilton, Sherman Hamilton, Jake LaRue, and Matt and Luke. Thank you. Have a great day.